Юрець, вітаю, вітаю. Вітаю усіх на стрімі.
Did you know that
Перегляд аніме на стрімі буде, коли задонатите $2000. Бля, я краще мамку чуюсь зніму за ці шекелі. Будь ласка, тебе ніхто не тримає. Розпоряджуйся своїми грошима, як вважаєш за потрібне. Так, бачу декілька відосиків, котрі буде цікаво передивитися. Добре, почнемо з цього. Почнемо з цього.
at the Japanese animation studio Kara, which created well-known and renowned shows such as Evangelion, has switched in the last couple of years to using Blender as the primary software for their upcoming anime shows. First of all, they were all animated with 3D software and not 2D software. Secondly, Blender was used somewhere along the way in making these movies. So I wanted to talk about the process of making 2D animated movies using 3D software, especially the VFX part. Also, we want to talk about the anime style VFX cause it is kind of an interesting subject to talk about. Anime style VFX has become increasingly popular in the entertainment industry, particularly in live action films, TV shows, and video games. This unique style of animation and special effects draws inspiration from the world of Japanese anime, and it is characterized by exaggerated movements, vibrant colors, and stylized energy effects that brings a sense of excitement and dynamic movement to the screen. One of the key technical aspects of anime VFX is the use of particle effects to create dynamic explosions, in addition to energy blasts and other effects with a tangible particle-based quality. Particle systems are used to generate and animate large numbers of small particles, such as smoke, dust, or sparks, to create a wide variety of effects. These particles can be combined with other techniques, such as motion blur and depth of field, to create complex and visually stunning scenes, which we can see a lot of them recently. Another important aspect of anime VFX is the use of cel shading to give 3D models the look of 2D anime art. This technique involves applying flat, color shading to 3D models to simulate the look of traditional hand-drawn animations, which is something that a lot of studios are using recently, and you can see it when watching anime shows that are airing recently if you pay a close attention to them. The result is a unique blend of 3D modeling and 2D animation that captures the essence of anime style. Also, camera angles are a crucial element of anime VFX, because dynamic camera angles are often used to emphasize the action or dramatic tension. For example, we have low angles to make the characters appear more powerful or high angles to show vulnerability. These camera techniques help to create a sense
Не
of
знаю,
movement
треба
and
замоделити
very
Космодеса.
characteristic of anime VFX. In a nutshell,
Зарано,
style
ще зарано.
VFX is an easier and visually stunning way to enhance the look of live
easy.
action films, TV shows, and video games. So, by using techniques such as particle effects, cell shading, and dynamic camera angles, anime VFX artists can create amazing and immersive experiences that can capture the essence of the anime style. And to achieve this kind of art, artists use a variety of software depending on their preferences. One of the most popular applications is Adobe After Effects, which is widely used for creating a wide range of visual effects and motion graphics. This is the case because it offers a wide variety of tools in addition to other features for compositing, animation, and motion graphics, making it a versatile and powerful tool for creating anime-style VFX. Another popular software is Autodesk Maya, which, as we all know, is a 3D modeling and animation software commonly used in the entertainment industry. Maya provides a wide range of tools and features for creating 3D models, characters, and animations, which can then be combined with other techniques such as particle effects and cell shading to create anime-style VFX. Moreover, Unity can also be used to create this type of effects, such as the ones we can see in games like Genshin Impact. Just to be clear, various VFX techniques can be combined to create anime-style effects using Unity, which provides a wide range of tools and features for building immersive and interactive experiences.
Ну що, Аря,
Blender is emerging in the
дай мені спочатку навчитися усе це робити, і потім буду тобі космодесантників, 2B, 2D, R2-D2 і інших створінь.
industry, since it became popular in the last few years, and it is being more often used in the creation of anime-style VFX. This is basically because Blender has a lot of potential, since it offers a wide range of tools and features for modeling, animation, and compositing. In addition to that, Blender can handle Toon Shader really well, in addition to line art, which helps a lot when making anime-style VFX. And to make things better for Blender users, there are a lot of add-ons offered by the large community of Blender users, which can help with this type of work. Some of the add-ons include EasyFire and Electro Blender add-ons, but I have to tell you about something that gives Blender a huge advantage, and that is geometry nodes, which helps massively. Generally speaking, regardless of the software people use, the niche of anime-style VFX is rapidly growing, especially in the world of visual effects, and it represents a great opportunity for artists to showcase their creativity and talent. While the entertainment industry as a whole is highly competitive, the world of anime-style VFX is still relatively small, and less competitive, I might add. This is the case compared to other areas of visual effects. This is partly because this field is a specialized niche that requires a unique set of skills and techniques, and artists who are passionate about anime and have a strong understanding of the style and aesthetics of it can excel in this field. As a result, there are fewer artists specializing in anime-style VFX compared to other areas of visual effects, creating a more manageable and less competitive environment for those who are interested in pursuing this as a career path. Also, I might add, the anime industry is rapidly growing and expanding worldwide, with new anime series and movies being produced every single week at this point. This creates a continuous demand for talented and skilled VFX artists who can create stunning visual effects that can capture the essence of the anime style, which means that this can be the right time to start learning it and emerge in this amazing niche. The resources to learn it though are really hard to find, and you might struggle to find a good high-quality course that is provided by a professional who is active in the industry. But you don't have to worry about that anymore, because the Colosso platform is just released a new course which is all about how to create a good-looking anime-style VFX. And for those of you who don't know what Colosso does, Well, it is an online learning platform that offers a selection of some of the best courses available. These courses are taught by experts in their industries, including well-known 3D artists and art directors. Since all of these instructors work for popular studios, you can be assured that you are getting the best stuff because they are going to teach you from experience. So they have recently created a new course called Anime Style VFX Production in Blender, and you will get exactly what it says on the title. This training will allow you to find out everything you need to know about how to do 3D animation production workflow, starting with the key functions of Blender, VFX, and filters which can be used to add colors. You will also discover the structure behind different effects and get tips for combining different materials in a scene to capture the production quality seen in 2D and 3D movies. Your instructor is a Japanese artist called Hiroshi Kanazawa, who is a 3D CG artist, best known for his unique visual production using Blender. He usually works for movies, promotional videos, and music videos, and one of his key strengths is cel shading. So we are very lucky to have an expert such as Hiroshi to share his experience with us and teach us what he learned over the years. The training consists of 21 videos, spanning over 11 hours and 55 minutes. The difficulty is basic, so even beginners can start out with this training. You will only need a short and basic understanding of Blender to be able to follow with the instructor. On a side note, the videos are in Japanese, but you will find English subtitles and you will need to use Blender 3.1 or higher to be able to follow the lessons. Just so you know, the process for creating animations will be covered in detail, with a focus on adding effects with clear explanations, so even Blender beginners can quickly understand the process for creating 3D visuals. Also, 10 different exercises will be included throughout the course to help you understand the concepts and how they are applied. By completing these exercises, you will gain the knowledge necessary to use Blender, and you can do that more efficiently and produce your own high-quality 3D or 2D projects. Additionally, you will practice using geometry nodes, in addition to texture logo animation, a variety of expressions with nodes, and a starry sky with a background shader, in addition to practicing materials and practical effects, 2D explosion visual effects, object destruction, lighting, and flames. Generally speaking, you will start by learning Blender basics and versatile node configuration techniques, where you can learn how to express yourself using nodes in a way that takes you beyond simple modeling, which is what we need in this case. After finishing that, you will see how effects expressions are created using various features in Blender. You will also learn how to master those features, while you will do infinite expressions with procedural effect modifiers. You will as well go over tips and tricks that are essential for creating spectacular action and realistic animations, in addition to insights behind the process of event sequencing, composite acquisition, and rendering. And at the end of this training, you will acquire the necessary skills to create your own animation and produce high-quality work. As I said before, courses like these are really hard to find, especially done by professionals in the field. Colosso also offers other courses taught by some of the best artists in the industry, which can give you a deep insight into the field about different topics in 2D and 3D. Now, be sure to check out the Anime Style VFX course and let us know what you think of it. Colosso also offers you guys a $30 discount coupon, which you can find in the description down below. So go now to the description to find the link to the course and other courses from Colosso. I hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. You can also take a look at some of our previous videos. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Colosso. Now let's check how much. Blender tutorials. Scan coupon for subscribers. Так, і що тут в нас? Ага, $149. Hiroshi Kanazawa. Аебіга. Чому все так дорого? Чому увесь цей світ VFX такий дорогий? За все потрібно платити. Платить дуже багато. Highlights. Blender Basic and Versatile Node Configuration Techniques. Effect. Expressions created using Blender various features. Acquire the skills to create your own animation. Я подумаю над цим. Я подумаю.
In today's video, we're gonna talk about some amazing new Blender add-ons that I'm sure you will find useful, from creating crowds, vegetation, animation, and much more. But before we continue, I wanted to let you know, guys, that we have a new YouTube channel called CG Vortex, and it is for news of 3D software and the CG industry in general. So if you want to keep yourself up to date with the latest add-ons and news, in addition to software updates and so on, you can find me there too. So we're gonna start with an interesting add-on. It is a new add-on that will make your models a lot more realistic, especially if you are modeling organic stuff like rocks, cliffs, old buildings, pillars, and so on. This add-on will allow you to procedurally add surface imperfections to your model, and you can do this easily in a short period of time, which is the purpose of using it in the first place. To be frank, I was surprised that the add-on even has a really simple interface. It even provides a free version to try the effect for yourself. However, you will be limited to only applying the effect, and to be able to further control the effect or use any other parameters, you will have to get the full version. The interface is divided into basically a few buttons. From the top, there is a checkbox labeled Add Bevel Modifier. This one applies a randomized bevel before adding the erosion so that your edges are nice and beveled. Right under that, you have the eroded button. This one will apply the modifier with tons of controls, which allows you to control things like detail level, erosion properties, smoothing, resolution, and my favorite, cut to the model, where you can apply deep cuts to your model, which looks awesome, and the apply button will apply the effect. And finally, this handy button called Copy Erosion, which helps you copy the erosion settings from the active object to the selected one. Still with proceduralism, we have an add-on called Procedural Crowds, which is really popular lately. It was developed by the same developers of Procedural Alleys. The add-on allows you to bring your scenes to life by adding crowds to it, which is obvious. However, the add-on doesn't stop there, because it allows you to control the crowd you added according to your exact needs. So you can choose to add between 6 different crowd types, and each type comes with its own preferences and settings. The first crowd type is called Audience, and here you can add a stack of people, and you can do this at once, or you can change the width and length of the crowd, and you can also choose an object for the character to look at. Also, you can choose a ground object for the crowd to adapt to. The second type of crowds is called Circle, which allows the crowd to be scattered around the circle. The third type allows you to make a crowd follow a specific curve that you draw manually. The next one is called March, and it allows you to move the crowd in a certain direction. And the last one is called Stadium, which I think is self-explanatory. Now we're gonna jump to something different, but it is really interesting, and it is highly related to performance and productivity. So if you are a 3D artist who uses GPU rendering in Blender, then it is most likely that you have encountered an issue of running out of VRAM, and this can be extremely frustrating. But we have MemSave, which is an add-on dedicated to optimizing and reducing VRAM consumption when rendering large projects that can be taxing and limited when it comes to hardware. The way it works is really simple. It decreases the texture sizes of objects that are small in the final rendered image, resulting in a huge reduction in VRAM consumption. This makes it an incredibly useful tool when working with large scenes and big projects, or for those with hardware constraints that could benefit from optimizing their resources. Now, talking about updates, recently the Vegetation add-on Botanic got its 6.8 update, and although it is just a small update, it came with many new stuff and big changes. The first thing you will notice with this update is the new category of assets, which is the Mediterranean climate assets, and it came packed with 15 new assets. The assets are trees, shrubs, and grass that can be found in dry Mediterranean climates, such as North Africa, the Middle East, African savannas, and also American shrublands. You can find some famous and long-awaited plants and trees such as olive trees, sage bushes, and also umbrella thorn trees. Another thing you will notice about this update is that the material system has changed because it has been reworked and cleaned up completely. So now, it will enable you to finally utilize the attribute system. Also, a lot of unnecessary steps and buttons have been deleted. Therefore, it is much easier and faster to use the material system, which is really great. Now, if you are an animator, I'm sure you will find this useful. We have a new add-on called Anim Toolbox, which provides a set of tools and workflows for animation inside Blender. So this tool will improve your workflow when baking, animating, and rigging inside the software, from baking animation to parenting and applying constraints. The add-on is a must-have if you are an animator using Blender, in my opinion. So the add-on is divided into 3 sections: Temp Controls, Anim Tools, and Rigger Toolbox. Temp Controls allows you to bake selected bones or controls into a new temporary adjustment rig, which in turn will control the original rig. The next section, Anim Tools. Here you can offset keyframes, which will enable you to offset all the keyframes of the selected bones. The next feature in Anim Tools is Copy World Matrix. This one will help you fix sliding lags, especially for cyclic animations, in addition to aligning objects with bones and so on, in addition to many other features that you can check for yourself. Now, if you are interested in line art, then that's a good thing, because line art in 3D has been getting very popular lately. So the add-on we're gonna talk about in this regard is called Line Art Curve Modifier, which is a Blender add-on that is supported by geometry nodes. Basically, it allows you to transform your 3D objects into captivating line art creations right inside the software. Although there is already a feature like this inside Blender, it is no match to this add-on, especially when it comes to the outcome quality, in addition to performance optimization, because it excels in so many aspects. So it has a lot of key features that separates it from the Blender default line art modifier. And one of the key differences is the ease of use, because even beginners can use it. This in addition to performance optimization, because Blender default line art can slow down your PC and it might sometimes even crash, especially if you have so many objects with line art applied to them. Next, we have a really amazing add-on, especially for modelers. This add-on helps you fix a lot of issues with doing precision modeling of any kind, especially if you have curved surfaces. And this is the case when it comes to automotive, product design, game assets, and so on. The add-on is called Surface Diagnostics, which consists of curvature graph and analytic shaders that will help you create better, well, surfaces. So what's under the hood? You will get a curvature graph and a couple of diagnostic shaders for different purposes. For example, the zebra shader. It is called zebra because when applied to a surface, it creates alternating black and white patterns like a zebra. This one is perfect for reflections check. This shader actually works similar to matte caps in Blender, however with more controls over the scale and texture rotation. We also have the ISO angle shader, which is also used to highlight and fix reflection lines by figuring out how and where the geometry is deformed, thus picking up any imperfections in the reflections. Next up is section shader. So once it's added, an empty object is spawned at that position of your 3D cursor. This empty will control the position, scale, and rotation of these lines. Last but not least, the curvature graph. This one I personally like, because it allows you to diagnose your topology and allows you to fix any inconsistencies of your model surface. So guys, if you are interested in one of these add-ons, you will find the necessary links in the description. Also, if you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so you can receive more videos like this. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Ну я так розумію, що це все теж за гроші, так? Eroded. Blender Market. Blender Market це все за гроші. $20. Угу. $18. Я що, схожий на мільйонера чи що? $12. $25. $49. Полігонік. Жовто-блакитний. З України? Він що, з України? Anim Toolbox. $15. Lionart Curve. $10. Або навіть $40. Surface Diagnostic. $0. Але напевно функціонал дуже порізаний в цьому випадку. Окей. Ну, типу, не знаю. Ми це збережемо на майбутнє. Тому що, блін, я не можу витрачати стільки грошей. Я всі гроші витрачу. Далі що? Pixel Art Style Diorama Animation in Blender and DaVinci Resolve. Ага, Pixel Art. Ну, типу, Pixel Art я не дуже зацікавлений в цьому стилі, але нехай. Нехай, подивимось. 5 хвилин недовго. За мене 4 лайки. Ноди, геометрі ноди. До лайка там і бійка. Тоді приберіть мої лайки. Я бійки не хочу. Вибила програму. да, дуже круто, дуже круто. Я нічого не можу зрозуміти, тому що дуже швидко. Піксель арт. Я не хочу піксель арт. Я хочу, щоб він виглядав наче мультяшний, але щоб він не був. Щоб він не був піксельний. Що це таке? Unity. Це ж Genshin Impact. Як мило. Як це мило. Yes, brother. Деколи тобі потрібно чимось пожертвувати, щоб добитися миру. Але якщо це не рашка, звісно. Що це таке? 3D software... Used to be. Воно не used to be, воно і зараз, сука, expensive. Напевно, і буде таким дорогим, сука.
In this video, I'm going to show you a super quick method for creating one of the most difficult joints on a character, the hips. Hours of painful weight painting are far behind you, as with some tiny additions to your character rig, you can get some amazing deformations completely automatically. I've been using this for all of my characters, and I'm about to show you how you can too. So here's an example character from Mixamo with a mocap animation. The hip deformations here look fine, but this is due to the perfected weight painting already on it. So if we take the Mixamo character and unparent the mesh so they're no longer connected, and we can go into the mesh vertex groups and delete them all so they are fully disconnected. So this represents where you'd normally be with your separate character mesh, ready to be connected to your armature. We'd shift select the mesh, then the armature, Control P, and parent it with automatic weights, so the two are now connected. Now as you can see, the default deformations we get at the hips are not good. It compresses the torso when the legs move sideways, and when they rotate forwards, it rotates part of the body with it, which do not translate well into animation. So how do we fix this? Well, normally this is where you'd need to go in and weight paint to fix it, but for the hips it can be really difficult and time consuming because it's such a complex joint. But we have a solution. Let's unparent and disconnect the mesh again for now. Select your armature and go into edit mode. At the top of one of the legs using the 3D cursor, add a new bone with Shift A and shrink it down and move it so it's inside the mesh. We can see it all clearer in wireframe mode. Then pressing E, extrude vertically a longer bone, then extrude a bone again a similar size to the first. Now in the front view, we want to position these so the middle bone overlaps the leg bone. We want the bottom bone to be the same angle as the leg, and the top bone to stay vertical so it points up the body. Then adjust them left and right to create a sort of natural curve, going from the leg up into the body. These don't need to be exact, and they can all be adjusted later. We want to name these bones something like hip-upper.L for the top bone, for the middle, hip.L, and the bottom bone, hip-lower.L. We add .L so we can mirror this onto the right side too at the end. Currently this is a chain where each bone is parented to the next, but we actually want to select the hip-upper bone in edit mode, hit Alt-P and clear the parent so it's no longer the child of this hip bone. Now in pose mode on the middle hip bone, under the bone constraints, add a stretch to constraint. Select the target to be the armature, and for the bone, select the hip upper bone. Also tick volume min and max at 1. Now when we move the top and bottom bones, the middle hip bone automatically stretches between the 2 points. Now we want to go into the object data properties, display as, and select B bone. This is how the bones are normally displayed on more complex rigs because of how versatile they are. Currently the bones are really thin, so to change the display size of a bone, select it and hit Ctrl Alt S and you can scale how big it appears. So here we can press A to size of a bone, select how versatile they are. This is how the bones are normally
Так, нічого не зрозуміло, але треба ж якось вчитися.
because of how versatile they are.
Ага. Тобто це все кістки.
currently the bones are really thin, so to change the display size of a bone, select it and hit Ctrl-Alt-S and you can scale how big it appears. So here we can press A to select all, maybe deselect the hands by holding Ctrl and dragging over them, and Ctrl-Alt-S and drag to make them more visible. And where you have overlapping bones such as here, you can vary the sizes to make each of them more visible. When I have a setup like this, I always make the end bones slightly bigger to mark the end points. Now select the hip bone. Under Bone Properties and Bendy Bones, we want to increase the segments to a higher number, and as you can see here, it creates the segments in the bone. Now scroll down further, and for the start and end handle, select Tangent, then select X, Z and E's for each. And for the start handle, choose the lower hip bone, and for the end handle, choose the upper hip bone. Now when you move the outer hip bones, the bendy bone in the middle curves with it. Finally, for this part, in edit mode, select the lower hip bones, then shift select the thigh bone, hit Ctrl P, keep offset to parent it, then select the upper hip bone, then shift select whatever hip or lower spine bone sits in the center alongside it, and again with Ctrl P, parent it. One final thing is we'll only want the hip bendy bone to actually deform the mesh, which can be controlled by this tick box. So in the bone properties of the upper and lower bones, untick this deform box. Now when we rotate the leg by the thigh bone, the hip bone bends with it. Just a point to note, if you readjust the base position of these bones in edit mode and you go into pose mode, the hip bone can suddenly be out of place. Whenever this happens, just go to the stretch constraint and hit this small cross which resets the original length. Now to flip this to the other side, we can use Symmetrize, which is why we added the .L at the ends. Select the 3 hip bones, under Armature, hit Symmetrize and it will copy the bones across. Now you may have an extra step depending on how your leg bones are named. If the thigh bones are labelled the same with just .L and .R, then it should work. But like on this Mixamo rig, they aren't named this way, so the bottom hip bone can't find a mirrored leg bone to parent itself to. So in edit mode, just reparent the new lower hip bone to the right leg and it should all work fine. And if you are using this with something like a Mixamo rig, then don't change these leg names to try and fix it. Just reparent it manually like I've done here, so the naming system still works for transferring mocap animations. Now the final step is adding a new bone. In edit mode, snap the cursor to a point in the middle and add a bone. Remember, use Ctrl-Alt-S to make it bigger. Now scale and readjust the bone to where the legs join, and we can label this something like hip center. Now add a bone constraint selecting Armature. We want to add 3 target bones. First is the hip or spine bone directly above it. Here I'll just copy across the bone name and we'll set this to 1. Then add the 2 hip bones, which are these 2 bones, and set them each to 0.5. Now this bone is a deform bone that is used to keep the mesh in the center in the right place. So now if we rotate the legs, this bone will always move to a center point between them. Now we've added 3 extra deform bones to our armature, so now if we connect it to our mesh, in object mode, select the character mesh, shift select the armature, Ctrl P, select armature deform with automatic weights. And now if we rotate the leg bones, we get a much more natural looking hip deformation right out of the box. And if we compare it to the version without these new bones, the torso stays perfectly in shape. And it's the same if you rotate the leg forwards. The original had this strange thinning of the torso, whereas this torso stays the same and creates a much more natural crease. Remember, this hasn't involved any weight painting at all, so now you have a character that's much more ready to animate straight out of the box. Depending on the design of the character, you may need to make some adjustments to the positioning of the bones, or you can do some weight painting on top, but now you've got 3 extra bones to weight paint between.
Да, якось це дуже складно.
Animations that work. The cool thing about this too is it isn't a part of the actual chain of the leg, meaning the animation works exactly the same. If you select these bones, press M and select one of these boxes, you can actually hide them on a different layer. So for example, here's a Mixamo character with the new bones added, and here's a mocap animation from Mixamo. If I shift select the character armature, then the animation armature, go to Object, Link Transfer Data, Link Animation Data, it copies the animation keyframes across, and as you can see, it works completely normally. And if we make this layer visible, you can see the bones are there doing their job. I actually found that sometimes it can provide even better deformations than just weight painting can achieve. This character on the left is the default Mixamo weight painting, and the right is with the added bones and automatically assigned weights. So no manual weight painting has been done here, and you can see the deformations are no longer creating strange creases and can actually look better. If you want to copy this onto other rigs, in edit mode, just select all of the new hip bones, Shift D to duplicate them and right click so they stay in place. Hit P and separate the bones. Now they are in a separate armature, you can snap this armature to the same origin as the armature you want to add it to. Shift select the armature you're adding it to, right click, join. Here it's disappeared, but this is because it was on a different armature. You can snap this armature to the same origin as the armature you want to add it to. Shift select the armature you're adding it to, right click, join. Here it's disappeared, but this is because it was on a different layer, so we just need to make it visible in the bone layers. And now, in edit mode, make sure to turn on X mirroring, and you just need to move them into the right position. Parent the top hip bones to the spine, and then make sure to turn off X mirroring before you parent the bottom hip bones to each individual leg. In pose mode, reset the original length of the stretch 2 constraint. Then for the middle bone, in the armature constraint, remove the armature and the bone, and select the new armature, selecting the relevant spine bone. And it should all be ready. Again, just parent it with automatic weights, and you have your character ready to go. I really hope this helps. I want to thank you all so much for all of the support you've given the channel recently. We've just hit over 10,000 subscribers, which is unbelievable. I really cannot thank you enough. And thank you for watching this video. Hit subscribe if you haven't already for more animation content and tutorials on the way. And
Так, дуже цікаво, але нічого не зрозуміло і якось все це дуже важко. Ой-ой-ой. Дуже важко. Добре. Що ми робимо далі? Що ми робимо далі? Давайте трошки помалюємо. Просто аби щось. Помалюємо, а потім трошки помоделюємо в блендері. Я не знаю. Оберемо щось. Я хочу створити, мабуть, якусь сцену. Мабуть, ми подумаємо над тим, типу, там створимо якийсь коротенький сюжет, що взагалі трапиться, що для цього потрібно. І спробуємо щось змоделювати. І вже поступово будемо дивитися, що потрібно повторити, що потрібно навчитися робити і так далі. Отже, відкриваємо Кріту. Мені просто дуже цікаво ще потренуватися з цим новим цікавим приладом, який я купив вчора. Я відсуваю трошечки від себе мікрофон. І спочатку поробимо лінії. Ми вже створили файл, мені потрібно обрати пензель 2B, 1H, скетч олівець. Давайте жорсткий. І починаємо. А напевно я хочу щось оцей хочу. Типу в нього відрізняється ступінь натиску? Не дуже, так? А якщо я оберу цей скетч. Так, у цього відрізняється. У цього відрізняється. Добре, давайте з цим попрацюємо. Мабуть, я не знаю, трошки збільшити розмір, мабуть, до 3,6. Повело мене трошечки. Трошечки повело. Блін, ну це дуже прикольна штука. Навіть просто малювати стрічки цікаво на цій штуці. Так, трошечки ще відсуну мікрофон. Ой, що це я зробив? Типу, якщо я натискаю ліву кнопку, тобто цю маленьку кнопку, то воно починає автоматично малювати. Треба це пам'ятати. Я просто виставив на цю маленьку кнопку left click. До цього там було щось інше, що я не міг використовувати, але дуже зручно на цій кнопці мати саме left click, left mouse button click. Отако. Наступна вправа, яку я хочу зробити, це ось що. Де моя мишка? Створити. От у нас є лінія горизонту. А ну, давайте спробуємо ось що. Я хочу намалювати лінію. Отаку рівненьку лінію. Ну, якось так. Оп. Так, у нас є лінія. І от тут у нас буде точка горизонту, точка сходу на горизонті. Ну, давайте, щоб вправа була така досить легка для початку. Ось, у нас є точка. Одна точка. І навколо цієї точки відносно горизонту потрібно намалювати куби. Куби у різному розташуванні. При цьому я хочу це зробити однією лінією. Якось так типу. Шух. 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 Ось перший куб. Нічого не малює. Дивись, не хоче. Чому я натискаю, а вона не працює? Не зламалося вже? Чи що? Що робиться? Начебто виглядає нормально. Давайте спробуємо ще раз. Дивись, не хоче. Не хоче натискатися. А чому? Непрозорість. Дивно. Дивно. Чи я змінив олівець? Випадково. Та ну ні. Що таке? Чому не працює? А ну, чекайте. Пен. Ну, нормально натискається. Ой. Ну-ка. Чому вона не хоче нормально малювати? Дивно. Якщо цю взяти, наприклад. Нічого не розумію. Нічого не розумію, блін. Я, напевно, випадково змінив якийсь параметр, але я не розумію, який саме. Тому що нічого не відбувається. Але програма відчуває натиск. Ось. Натиск воно відчуває, але чомусь не працює як повинно. А, я змінив колір на білий. Зрозуміло, я випадково змінив колір на білий, я бачу. Ну добре, тоді добре. Так, то давайте це все приберемо. Просто потрібно було змінити колір на чорний. Буду знати тепер. Ну, типу щось таке. Не знаю, чи потрібно малювати якось цю внутрішню частину. Отако зробимо. Тепер десь отут. От это, отак. Робимо точно такий ж куб. Але вже щоб він дивився в цей бік. Отак. Отак. Це отак. Це отак. Мабуть, цей тут повинен бути трошечки отако. Щось типу цього. Ну, типу цього. Подобається домик, так? Мені теж подобається. Але це не домик, це просто кубик. Поки що це просто кубик. Та я роблю таку вправу, щоб просто було зручніше працювати з цим олівцем. В Майнкрафті. Який ти молодець, Юра. Просто молодець. Оп. Щось типу цього. Опа, що це таке? Як я це увімкнув? Не знаю. Не знаю. Тако напевно. Ага. Ну ладно. Ілі Майнкамфі. Зрозуміло, зрозуміло. Ну так там. Нема ніякої різниці. Взагалі. Так, а тут повинно йти отако і отако. Отако. Жух. 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 Та... ну, якось жух. Отак. Так. Тут робимо так. Тут робимо так. Ну, щось на кшталт цього. Дуже велика. Щось на кшталт цього. Потім от тут. Навіть отут. Отако. 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 І отако. І сюди тільки жух. І вжух. Отако. Якось так. Потім отако. 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 І отако. Так. І отак. Ну, якось типу цього. Щось типу цього. Як я можу це змінити мишкою? Ніяк? Ага, так. Права кнопка 365. Коли станеш відомим, видали стріми. Ні. Це залишиться в історії назавжди. Та ніхто не буде дивитися навіть ці стріми, навіть якщо я стану відомим, тому не парся. Кому я нахуй потрібен? Ну, щось типу цього. Перспектива. Не знаю, тут є щось типу лінійки, щось таке. Лінійка якась, що це таке? Кмітливого накладання. Ну, до речі, я мог типу зробити щось на кшталт цього, провести типу сюди лінію, потім провести сюди лінію, потім сюди. Ну, до речі, можемо перевірити, наскільки я був точний з моїми розрахунками. Ага, цю лінію я в'їбав конкретно. Цю лінію більш-менш. В'їбав цю лінію теж конкретно. Цю трошечки в'їбав. Цю конкретно в'їбав. Усі три лінії в'їбав тут. Ця більш-менш. Більш-менш. Цю конкретно в'їбав. А, ні, дивись, дуже рівно. Вийшло. Цю трошечки в'їбав. Оцей більш-менш, оцей дуже погано. Вийшов. Ця непогано. Ця теж непогано. Ця більш-менш. Ця більш-менш. І ця більш-менш. Ну, тобто, типу, більш-менш, більш-менш. Magnificent Dimensional Cox. Дуже гарна назва, Юра. Так і назвемо. Так і назвемо. Мені подобається, що тут дуже гарно можна писати. Дивись. Якось так, да? І мій підпис десь отут. Мій підпис. Тепер усі знають, що це моя робота. Невчасно ти вийшов, Юра. Мені потрібен твій коментар. Ну добре. Це ми зберігати не будемо. Так. Добре. Що ще ми можемо зробити? Ми можемо зробити розріз. Припустимо, в нас є куб. Так? Ось отакий куб. Отакий куб. Отакий куб. Ну і типу якийсь, я не знаю. Нехай буде якийсь отакий куб. Точка сходу у нас десь там, далеко. Дуже далеко. Ось. І ми хочемо сюди в'їбати шар. В'їбати шар. Я не знаю, наприклад, якось отак. Ну, якось отак. Тепер нам потрібно зрозуміти, яким чином цей шар перерізає наш куб. Тобто, ось його, типу, діаметр, так? Цього шару. Ну, якось отако. Якось отако. Його діаметр. Тут точка перетину, тут точка перетину. І як він в нас іде тут? Напевно, якось отако. Отако. А значить, що він якось його тут перетне. До речі, з цього боку, напевно, це буде видно погано. Погано. Добре, давайте це все приберемо. Зробимо якось інакше. Дуже багато прибирати. Дуже багато прибирати. Давайте якось так. Тоді у нас отут отако іде лінія. Розтину. А оце ми просто беремо, отак от і прибираємо. Але це ще не все. Це ще не все. Чому? Тому що тут ми робимо 3,65. Отут у нас типу пунктир такий буде. Тобто це лінія цього квадрату. Це у нас типу наш шар. Якось так. Дун-дун-дун-дун-дун-дун-дун. Дун-дун-дун. Один глядач і той хуйню ригає. Ну, Що я можу поробити? Такі в мене глядачі. Дебіли. Напевно, я повинен зробити щось типу на кшталт цього. Чи щось таке. Цей розріз повинен якось відрізнятися від звичайної форми кульки. Ай. Потрібно стрімити Skyrim. Чому саме Skyrim? Ой. Що я зробив? Йобаний рід. Ноль. Така. Генеріть меми як Пепич, тому що це беза. Так, але для того, щоб мені грати в Skyrim, мені потрібно поставити 250 модів. Добре, якщо ми, припустимо, опускаємо цей шар, типу, отут от в нього отака от іде фігня. Так? Типу, отака. Якась кругла. Я не знаю. Я вже не розумію. Це, типу, прибирається. А тут у нас типу залишається така кулька врізана в куб. Ванільний Skyrim, кращий Skyrim. Ну, для когось кращий, а для когось непоганий, але з модами краще. Якось отако. О, зараз ця кулька врізана в куб. Мені так здається. Врізали кульку в куб. Ще можемо зробити щось отаке. Зробити тут розріз. Отако. Тобто тут у нас буде йти отак. Отак. І тут отак. І тоді ми оце прибираємо. І у нас виходить вже розріз отакий. Жух. І тут теж вжух. Вже у нас куб розрізаний. Отаким чином. Ну, типу, якось так. Якось так. Ох уже дімот на ньому сукупен-джойери. Ну чому сукупен-джойери? Я просто люблю поставити собі там якісь моди, щоб там, я не знаю, на гарну броню якусь там, я не знаю, на плащі, на... як це? Метательні коп'я. Не знаю, як це коректно українською буде. Я люблю мітати коп'я в Скайрімі. І мені подобається цей мод, з яким я можу мітати коп'я. Що ще ми можемо зробити? Давайте зробимо якийсь, я не знаю, такий конусний виріз якийсь. Типу, якщо наш куб іде якось отак, да, і закінчується десь тут, і десь отут. А тут у нас буде типу виріз, не знаю, якось цей бік. Типу ми беремо резиночку, стираємо цю всю фігню. Напевно, воно повинно виглядати як виріз. Так? Типу дірка така скрізна. На перекіс. Типу, тут ще можна зробити якусь, я не знаю, якщо у нас десь там звідси світить сонечко, так? Тоді у нас буде якось падати тінь, якось типу вжух. Там, я не знаю. Якось вжух. Тоді ця частина буде така типу в тіні. А ця типу ні. Не знаю, тут дуже важко сказати, як саме потрібно падати тінь. Але знаю, як це можна узнати. Дивіться, ми беремо куб, ми створюємо конус, ми його перекручуємо отако, зменшуємо, потім рухаємо його якось от сюди, отак. Типу якось от так. Я не знаю, можна ще його трошечки ось тако розвернути. Потім ми беремо куб, додаємо modifier boolean. І що у нас виходить? Ось що. ось що в нас вийшло. А якщо ми візьмемо цей конус, візьмемо цю точку і ще її отако якось витягнемо. І потім перейдемо до нашого кубу. Ось, бачите, щось таке в нас повинно вийти. І ми бачимо, як виглядає тінь. А якщо ми робимо Shade Smooth, ні. Якщо ми робимо тут Shade Smooth, то у нас виглядає як якась фігня. Але навіть таким чином ми бачимо, що тінь повинна бути в оцій частині. Це якщо в нас світло падає звідки то з цього напрямку. Але якщо ми зробимо лампочку якщо ми перенесемо лампочку нижче, ось бачите, як в нас змінюється. Тобто ця частина освітлена, а внутрішня частина не освітлена. Дуже цікаво. І якщо ми збільшуємо потужність лампочки, нічого взагалі не змінюється. Дуже цікаво. А якщо от сюди... Ну, мабуть, це через те, що ми якось неправильно зробили шейдинги, але якось так воно працює. Не знаю, якщо ми приберемо Shade Smooth, напевно, мабуть, щось і зміниться. Ну, коротше, якось так. Ось, тобто воно все повинно бути таким темним, але деяка частина буде ще темнішою. І потім ми переходимо знову в кріту і просто робимо, як тут вказано. Це забагато. Так, от шух. Ось. А цю робимо частину прям такою темною. І можна зробити такий красивий перехід. Бачите? А оця внутрішня частина в нас теж темна. Тому ми її теж робимо темною. Напевно. Ну, типу, тут вона виглядає темно. Але не такою темною, як ця частина. Тому ми отак от робимо тут все темним. Робимо все темним. Потім беремо резиночку. І отако трошечки. Ну, щось типу цього. Але якщо, наприклад, у нас є тут якась позаду поверхня, так? Plain S G. Щось типу цього. І дивимося тепер. Ми ще бачимо там тінь. Але воно начебто все одного кольору. Я, мабуть, дуже багато замалював. Тут не повинно бути так. Щось на кшталт цього. Так чи ні? Ну, типу, якось так. Ця частина така більш темна. Напевно, щось типу цього. Да, мишкою тут малювати неможливо. Це тільки потрібно пензелем. І бачити. Бачити пензелем. Ну, це дуже прикольно, що можна в якості референса дивитися, типу, в такому 3D просторі. Чи правильно ти робиш, чи неправильно ти робиш. Такий я, як то кажуть, наживо можеш дивитися. Все, що потрібно. Тому що такий виріс, він, ну, такий дуже незрозумілий на перший погляд. Як воно працює, як тут відбивається світло, а так ти побачиш такий, ага, зрозуміло. Такий, ага, зрозуміло тепер. Тепер мені все зрозуміло. Так. Ну, щось типу цього. Типу цього. Тут, типу, ще дуже багато різних цих. Там ручка є. Можна писати. Не знаю, хай готиком. Хай готик. Можна просто писати щось типу. Щось типу цього. Не знаю. Так. А ще я завжди забуваю, що зворотня сторона це повинна бути резинка. Це гумка. Ось гумка. Якщо щось там написав, типу, ой, написав не те, потім взяв, перевів на гумку і зворотньою стороною дуже зручно витирати. Ага, і тут навіть розмір автоматично змінюється, коли ти перевертаєш ручку. Зрозуміло. Оця ще теж прикольна річ. А можна так, щоб плавнесенько? А можна так дуже плавнесенько, щоб воно ледь-ледь малювало щось. Ось. Щось на кшталт цього. Не знаю, давайте зараз спробуємо. Беремо такий карандаш. Обираємо розмір 3, ну давайте 4. 4. Я не знаю, давайте зробимо щось типу таке. Типу це якийсь, не знаю, якась споруда. Тут у нас така кругла. А тут дві башти такі маленькі. Ось ця споруда у нас іде наверх. Така. А це просто типу такі башти. Ну, не знаю, щось на кшталт цього. Тут отака буде, не знаю, типа дверця така. Тут буде такий типу парапетик. Парапетик такий. Такий ось парапетик. Тут типу у нас такого зроблено дерева якогось. Не знаю, чи схоже це на дерево. Щось тут ще типу типу такого. Там якась фігня, типу, зверху. Дуже гарно. От. Тут теж типу такі, не знаю, вікна, типу. Ні, напевно, вони повинні бути менші. І більш такі скруглені. Не знаю, щось типу цього. Двері теж такі типу. Тут теж такі типу двері. Ось. Вікна якісь, не знаю. Щось типу якісь вікна. Щось типу цього. Ну, штриховка в мене ще така, не дуже поки що гарна. Але що маю? Беремо потім. Стираємо це все гімно. Стираємо це все гімно. І вже виглядає як якийсь Заборчик, начебто. Не знаю, щось на кшталт цього. Це можна стерти. Ну, щось типу цього. У нас вийшло. От. Тут у нас може така, типу, доріжечка. Тут, типу, такого щось. Не знаю, деревка якісь. Якісь кущі. Якась фігня. Бла-бла-бла. Ще якесь деревко. Ще якісь кущі. Тут якісь кущі навколо деревка. І чисто така травичка. Теж якась тропка. Тут якась тропка. Тут якась хмарка. Ще якась хмарка. Ще щось. Травичка. І тут якась травичка, чисто. Ну це ж геніально, ні? І ще ми ще в'їбемо сюди якийсь, я не знаю. Отаку от ось штуку. Жух. Жух. Палка така. Типу флаг. І тут теж такий типу флаг. Ні, як воно зазвичай малюється. Типу тут це все хуйня. Так, так. Отако. І тут теж отако. Флаг. І тут теж отако. Тут типу така табличка там. Яйця кабана. Таверна яйця кабана. М? Я вважаю, що це файно, то гарно. Я б в таку таверну зайшов. Оп. Дуже файно, то гарно. Ну, я вже відчуваю себе набагато впевненіше, використовую цей прилад. Більше практики, більше усього цього, і я вважаю, що потім можна буде почати якісь курси і вже степ бай степ починати малювати щось більш приємніше, ніж оця ось хуйня. Ось. Так. Давайте ще трошечки щось подивимось. Мені потрібна невеличка перерва. Я намалювався поки що. Я не знаю, типу VHF. Тобто VFX Production. Виглядає дуже класно, дуже класно. І це в блендері, типу, ну от, ось, блендер. Те, що, типу, ну, можна використовувати вполне собі. Цілком. Я хотів сказати. Цілком. От. Так. Цей відосик ми вже зберегли, так. Modeling Anime Characters in Blender. Давайте ще це подивимось. Це подивимось. Оце ось Dilongu Studios. Теж круті хлопці. І їх софт теж можна, в принципі, придбати.
Convincing as possible.
Ось все.
Quarantine failed. Deploy antivirus protocol.
Бачите, як воно класно виглядає? І це все в блендері зроблено.
Virus attack pattern successfully duplicated. Antivirus protocol fully engaged. Executing malware threat.
Оу, шит.
That's it.
Браво, браво. Браво. Це реально браво.
What's going on, everyone? 2 a.m. here, and I just completed this character model recently, so I want to share a few tips I used for creating anime style characters like this one. Now, this will kind of be a full process, but not really, because I want to focus more on specific techniques. So use whichever ones you think are helpful. So tip number 1 is when to use sculpt mode versus edit mode. Now, a good Blender user will always be able to use both, but I've noticed a lot of professional users tend to do it like this. So for the torso and the limbs, they use sculpt mode first. Now, obviously, when you use sculpt mode, you're left with all these vertices, which is not good for exporting to VTuber models or game characters. So after they use sculpt mode, they do what's called retopology, where they go into edit mode and using the snapping tools, they create a more simple, lower poly version of the mesh. Now, why do they go through this whole process and not just skip the sculpting step? I'll explain that later. But as for the hands and feet, they tend to use edit mode to manually model the hands and feet, and then use sculpt mode to refine the hands and the feet. So that's the process I copied when I made this model. So starting from scratch, the first thing I did was model the hands and feet. From my point of view, it's easier to manually model the hands and the feet instead of using sculpt mode. And here's a couple reasons why. First of all, there's a lot of tiny details in the hands and the feet, including the fingers, the fingernails, and these parts are actually kind of a pain to sculpt, but in edit mode, it's much easier and simpler. Now, after this video, I do plan on making tutorials on how I make my hands and feet using a very simple method, so stay tuned for that if you're interested. But as you can see, another advantage of manually modeling the hands and feet is that you can simply copy the toes and the fingers. Now, I tend to do the big toe separate from the other little toes, and the thumb separate from the other fingers, because the thumb and the big toe do look a lot different than the other ones. Of course, another advantage of manually modeling the hands and feet is that you can make them clean, simple, and functional. And when your mesh is clean like this, it's very easy to go into sculpt mode and then just inflate the parts that need inflating, because the topology is very well suited to the shape of the foot. Now, one other thing you'll notice when I upload my full process for hands and feet is that it's a very specific and consistent method. And I did it like that on purpose because every time I make a new hand or foot, I don't want to guess or make a new way every time. I just want to follow the steps that I made. And when you repeat processes like this, that's how you get faster and that's how you improve faster. Another advantage of doing this is you will have the same number of vertices in the openings of your hands and feet every time. So modeling these parts like this and having the openings at the wrists and ankles be at a low amount of vertices is a good advantage, and it's thinking ahead because they're obviously going to be connected to the arms and the legs, and those parts are usually simple and don't have too many vertices. So I usually just like to keep track. My hands have 12 vertices at the openings and my feet have 10. For the next tip, I want to explain what Dyne Topo and Remesh are for those that don't know them yet. They sound complicated, but they're just very simple and useful tools in sculpt mode. So when first creating the sculpted body, we block it out using simple shapes like spheres and cylinders, as you can see here. And they're all just joined into one object with Ctrl J, but as you can see, like they're overlapping each other. And there's like vertices inside, but if we go to sculpt mode and go to remesh, you can see that we can join all of these, give us new vertices to work with, and it also deletes all the vertices that are inside. These give us new vertices inside, but if we go to sculpt mode and go to remesh, you can see that we can join all of these, give us new vertices to work with, and it also deletes all the vertices that are inside. Now we can turn on Dyne Topo, set detailing to constant detail and resolution to about 40, turn on the mirroring in our brush, and we'll be good to go to sculpt this into something that actually looks like a body. We can use the smooth tool to smooth out the edges from the shapes. And all Dyne Topo means is whenever you sculpt, you're creating new vertices. So without Dyne Topo, you're really only moving vertices that you already have. You don't want that because it's not flexible. One good thing about sculpting first is that we can carve out these really fine details like the collarbone, also the rib cage. And when we sculpt out these parts like this, as I'll show you later,
Чому така пауза була?
create the topology right over it. So in this next tip, I'll show you how to take this thing. And when we sculpt out these parts like this, as I'll show you later, it's much easier to create the topology right over it. So in this next tip, I'll show you how to take this thing with like a billion vertices and make it very much simpler. To set this up, we have to create a new plane object, find this viewport display option, and make sure in front is checked. Turn on snapping, which is the magnet icon you see there, and make sure to also select face nearest. This is Blender version 3.3, by the way. It might look different if you're using a different version, but as you can see there, we have our plane object, and whatever you do with this plane object, it will snap to the sculpted body that we made. And because we turned on the in front, we can always see it on top, and that will make it easier for us to work with it. Now, I won't go over every single part, but here's how it works with the chest area. We just go around it, extruding new vertices, press E to make new points, and then press MA to merge them at those 2 points. Now I select all the vertices around it, use E to extrude and S to scale it down, and as you can see, it just follows the shape of the sculpted body we just made. Obviously, we have to adjust this because it looks a little messy right now, but hopefully you get the point. Shade smooth and look at that. Now it's a very similar process for the leg. At the bottom of it, I just make sure it's matching with the foot, which is 10 vertices. Extrude it upwards, use Ctrl R to subdivide. And once you move those subdivided points, it follows the shape of the sculpted legs. So as promised, I'll explain more why I like this method of sculpting first, then doing retopology instead of just modeling from the start, because I have done that before. I have purely modeled without sculpting the body, but I think when you sculpt the body first, you can get the curves more accurate to the proper anatomy. And as mentioned, you can easily sculpt the collarbone, the rib cage, even the abs and stuff. But I actually won't model the abs here. It's kind of overkill, but I will do the other stuff. So as you can see, for those parts like the rib cage, we just add extra vertices there and make sure they follow the curve of the object that we modeled. And it's not hard because, again, it just snaps onto what we already made. And here I'm just following the basic rules of topology, which we just follow the shapes of the body, the contours of the body, and we try to make sure everything is a quad, which is it has 4 edges. Well, for the most part, there's at least 2 faces here that have more than 4 edges, but you know, that's for good reason. And here is me connecting the hands and the feet. Again, this is simple because we keep track of our wrist and ankle vertices. So the wrist has 12. We match that with the arm and make it 12 vertices as well. So when we join this object and bridge edge loops, they both have the same number of faces, so it just connects perfectly. And here's more of a general art tip. If you ever get the feeling that something is off or wrong about your work, don't ignore it, always try to adjust it. You always have to be constantly looking for the imperfections in your work and assessing it, looking at it objectively, and that's the key to fast improvement. So here the arms are too long, but fortunately that's a quick fix. Now we get onto the face and the head, and my preference for this one is to not sculpt it, but rather just use edit mode from the rip. And this is because of the small details like the eyes and nose and mouth, which have to be very specific. So that's why I prefer using edit mode for the precision. Now I notice a lot of
Вибачте,
people create
ніхто
anime
не
models
бачив,
will
що я
trace
дивлюся
over their
відос,
reference images, which
тому
is
що в
they'll
мене
import an
увімкнен
image of the
блендер.
head as a
Дуже
plane and trace the
здорово.
vertices over it. Now, I'm not necessarily against this. You saw my oldest video, I drew my own 2D reference image and then traced over it. So I do use both methods, but over their reference images, which is they'll import the image of the head as a plane and trace the vertices over it. Now, I'm not necessarily against this. You saw my oldest video, I drew my own 2D reference image and then traced over it. So I do use both methods, but my tip for fast improvement is to learn to model without tracing too. I did have a reference image for this character, but I decided not to trace it, but instead put it off to the side and attempt to recreate it with just freehand modeling. So I won't get too detailed on this section, but basically I just create the side edges and the front edges of the face, including the mouth and the nose. And if you notice on the eye sockets and even the mouth, they're angled a little. They're not fully straight onwards, otherwise the face will look very flat. And then after you've made the boundaries of the face, that's when you use your edit mode skills and try to fill in this mask of the face as best as you can. And unfortunately, unlike the hands and the feet, we don't have a true formula for this one. So we can't just do the same thing every time because, you know, faces look different all the time. But hopefully in the future, I'll also have a full detailed video on how I model faces. Also do note that this will be an unlit model, so I don't really have to care about how the normals will be on this face or how the shadows will hit it because there won't be any shadows on it. It would actually look completely different if I had to care about how the shadow hitting the face. But anyways, filling in the face like that is kind of just like a puzzle. You just have to get in there and figure it out with a lot of trial and error. The face is very skinny right now. There's not a lot of meat on her cheeks, but we'll fix that in Sculpt tool. And before, I would just finish off the rest of the head using modeling as well. But to make it more efficient, I just used the snapping method again. Created a new sphere object, sculpted it to fit the gaps of the head, and then I just used snapping to easily finish off the rest of these vertices. The neck is another connection point you'll have to be wary of, so when I'm making the bottom of the head, I'm making sure it's the same number of vertices as the opening on my body and neck area. Now, truth be told, the number of vertices on this face and head is kind of high. I wish I made it a little simpler than that, but it's no big deal. My next tip is to mark your seams because this makes it very easy to unwrap and texture. You'll find this simply in Edge, Menu, Mark Seam. So all these red lines you can just copy where I put them, which is around the edges of the hand, on the face where it separates from the rest of the head, on the base of the neck, on the base of the ankles, and one going down the middle of the leg. As you can see, the one that cuts the hand in half also extends to the elbow and to the back of the shoulder blade area. And I should mention I also put seams around each of the fingernails. And by doing this, I've cleanly separated each part of the body for texturing, except for the feet. The feet are kind of bad, but that's okay because she's gonna be wearing shoes anyway. If you see the feet, there's like a bunch of vertices bunch up into one, and that's what you're trying to avoid when you create these seams. If you look at the other islands, they have very spaced out faces. Now here's a little cheat for unlit models. You don't actually have to create eyeballs. You just have to shade the back of the eye socket to make it look like it's the eyeball, which is what I'm doing here. This won't work for every situation and application, but for the ones it does, you save yourself the process of having to create an eyeball. That's
Texture
also going to
paint.
make it easier for you when you create expressions and shape
Ага.
for your character if you're
Тобто
doing
він
that,
просто
'cause you don't
робить
have to worry about
шейдинги.
moving the eyeball either. Alright, so we're almost all out of tips. Before I give you the last one, let me just ask what you think of this video idea. Originally it was supposed
Да,
to just be
Юрець,
full
ми просто
time-lapse
дивимося
without
усе
commentary,
підряд.
but instead I decided to make
Оце,
it
що
parts
мене
of a
цікавить.
time-lapse so that I can highlight specific techniques and tricks used in the process. So do you think you would learn better from videos like this or a full time-lapse with no commentary? If people like this video style, then I might make a series where it's going to be the usual character creation process, but each time I'll highlight different techniques that I use or try. As always, feel free to leave your feedback or questions in the comments below. Now the last tip that I have for you today, number 10, is the method that I used for the hair this time. Now there's many different ways to do hair, and actually for me it was the most complicated and daunting part of the entire process because it's actually pretty time consuming and complicated. But to achieve good hair actually takes a lot of work. So here I'm using the curves method plus a snapping mask plus seams. So for those that don't know, it's pretty easy to set this up. Just create a circle curve and a path curve. For the circle curve, you make it the shape of a hair strand. Now there's a very important step I don't want you to miss for either of these objects. Go to a resolution preview and turn it down to 1 or 0. Otherwise, when you convert it to a mesh, it's gonna have like a million vertices. Now in the green tab for the path curve under geometry, click object and then use the eyedropper tool to click on the circle curve. And this is now your hair strand object.
Чому не дивимось гайди, як тащить в КС? А навіщо мені тащить
And
в
let me just
КС?
go over some basic controls here when you go into edit mode. Curve object is just much easier to control, and we can use Alt-S to
Мені похуй на КС.
fat in certain vertices. The usual shortcut just S won't work. You have to use Alt-S, and then to rotate them, you actually have to use Control-T. And guess what? We're gonna create yet another snapping mask. So for this one, I want to try to find the viewport properties so that I can change it into display as wire so that I can see through it. And you can even turn down the opacity of this wire. And you want the snapping guide to be bigger than that, even bigger than I made here. I actually had to enlarge the hair, scale it up later because if the snapping mask is too small, the hair will look very flat. Here's a curve hair strand technique that I just showed you. You always want to make sure that the start of the hair strand is at the center of the head. And for the first hair strand, if you make the origin of the object at the center of the top of the head, when you duplicate it, you can easily rotate it and it will just rotate along the top of the head perfectly. And you definitely want that because that's just proper technique. So as this goes on, you can see the hair is looking okay, but as I said, it's looking kind of flat because the mask is too small. So that's why I'm saying if you're trying this, make the mask a little bit bigger than I made it. And of course, turn on and off the snapping mode as you desire because obviously some parts of the hair are not going to conform perfectly to the shape of the mask. Now, texturing the hair is really tedious, but if you want full control over the texture of your hair, then this is one method on how to do it. After converting each hair into a mesh object, I go into edit mode and mark a seam along every hair strand where it separates from the front of the hair to the back of the hair. And now when I separate it into this texture, I can easily put the back of the hair where it belongs so that it will have that shadowed look.
Ти ж кіберкотлета мільйон баксимільйонів за турики. Ну, да.
We can do it, guys. Come on. After all is said and done, we can now move on to an easier part, which is just painting. And they actually have a new feature in the more recent versions of Blender, I think.
I wish I would somebody like this, but ніяких мільйонів в мене не буде. Саме завдяки КСу. Я маю на увазі.
3.3 and up, where you can press Alt-Q and you can switch directly between layers while you're in sculpt mode. So I'm just doing that so that I don't have to tab out of sculpt mode every time I want to select a different hair strand. I might as well include this bonus tip because it's already here. If you ever have any skin tight clothing, just duplicate the parts of your body mesh where it's over, separate them by selection, and then go into sculpt mode and inflate them. And you should go into the proper viewport when you're doing this so that you can see when the skin tight clothing is actually wide enough to be directly over the body mesh because you don't want them to be like stacked on top of each other. But yeah, that's really gonna be it for this video. So if you enjoyed or if it helped you, please leave a like and consider subbing. I'm gonna leave in some more parts of the time lapse that you might find interesting, but I won't.
Добре, ми залишимо лайк.
And I'll see you in the next one.
Це
Peace
ще
out.
не все. Це ще не все. Ну, типу, да, там це все. Дуже виглядає все так легко, але насправді, сука, ніхуя не легко, блядь. Виглядає все дуже легко, але, сука, воно ніхуя не так легко, як воно здається. Прикольно. Так. Ну, добре, збережемо це. Що я хочу сказати? Я хочу зробити невелику перерву. Зроблю перерву, перепочну, поїм. І, мабуть, ще потім підрублю, або вже підрублю завтра. Подивимось. Дивимось, який в мене буде настрій. Тому всім дякую за увагу і до зустрічі, скоро побачимось.